Once, in another lifetime, I was engaged to marry a frog. And when I realized he was a frog, I broke off the engagement. But it wasn't easy because I wanted children. My fictitious future children, who didn't even exist yet, those children deserved better. I loved them already. As I closed the door to marriage, I gave my desire to have a family to God. I was done trying to force happiness, but scared at the same time. What if it wasn't God's will for me to have children? Thinking it over, I said, how about if by the time I'm 40, if I still don't have a family, I adopt? I don't recommend making deals with God, but this was mine. 1 year later, on the very day I was supposed to marry the frog, I met my husband. We are now the happy parents of 2 amazing children. When I look back, I can see that my longing for children actually helped to shape my life into something better. It meant walking away from a destructive relationship. It meant waiting, even if I didn't feel like waiting. It meant trusting, even when I did not know the outcome. Last year, the night before I turned 41, I suddenly remembered that deal I'd made with God. If I hadn't had a family by the time I was 40, I would adopt. Well, he gave me a family, a loving husband, and 2 children. The deal was done, right? I prayed silently, God, if I'm supposed to adopt a child's going to have to drop on my doorstep for that to happen in time. In walked my then 8-year-old son. He said, what if you had a baby on your birthday? I couldn't speak, and then he said, I think you should adopt a child. I gulped. You do? Yes, he said, and he's a boy, and he's 7 years old, and his name is Gary. I think I left my body. Stunned, I went down and told my husband what had happened. I told him about the deal with God. I told him what my son had said, and he went completely white and said he was fairly sure 7-year-old Gary was a cat at the pound. No children were dropped on my doorstep. I never even found a 7-year-old Gary to sponsor in Uganda or Kazakhstan, not for lack of trying. But the longing never went away. It's the longing I need to talk about. When I was having my second child, my son, I began hemorrhaging at 33.5 weeks. And my husband and I rushed to the hospital. He was born healthy, thank God, and I saw him for a moment all bundled up and wearing a little hat. He looks just like his father, I said. And the next day, my doctor came in and explained to me what had happened in the birth. She also told me I could not have any more children. I was in shock. I was so thankful to have a healthy child, but I felt like something had been stolen from me. I was grieving for the child who would never be. My mother had 3 children. My whole life, I thought I would have 3 children. My sister and brother each had 3, but I was being told I would only have 2. For a while, I grieved the life I thought I would have with 3 children. I grieved not having an older, middle, and youngest child, but I began to pour that energy into writing. I wrote my first novel in 5 months, and my career of birthing novels began, I believe, in part because of the longing for another child. My biological clock was now set, and no one told it we wouldn't be having any more kids. Every 2 or 3 years, I felt this longing for a new child. Blessedly, it passed away after each time, until the last time. I felt deep in my bones the urge to have a baby. If I saw a baby, I would cry on TV, in the grocery store. Yes, I had 2 children who were my whole world, but what was it with this longing? One day in church, I could stand it no longer. I picked myself up out of the sanctuary and went out in search of the nursery. There I stood at the windows, watching ladies caring for babies. I forced myself to look. I sobbed deep, ugly, guttural sobs, and then I was free. Soon after, I became a part-time art teacher at a local school. I'll never forget walking with the lower school principal. I spied children in classrooms, and the moment overwhelmed me. God knew my longing to love another child, and here he was about to surround me with children. Today I've taught hundreds of children, and I love them all. Remember 7-year-old Gary, my husband said was a cat at the pound? Last May, I saw a Facebook post about some kittens who were surrendered to a kill shelter in Colombia. They were set to be euthanized at 3. I looked at my clock. It was 2:54. I made a call. I'm on the way. Within hours, my sister, niece, and I were rushing down the highway. Have you ever heard the sound of 23 scared kittens on a 2-hour drive? We didn't know what we were doing. My sister took 8 home, and I took the rest. Over the next 8 days, I syringe fed and cleaned litter boxes, bathed and comforted, made phone calls, and prayed until each kitten found a home. After my husband agreed to keep me, he suggested that we keep the last kitten. Her name is Sugar. She's my baby, and she doesn't leave my side. My husband tries to get her to come sit with him. It's not healthy for her to be so attached to you, he says. But I'm her mama, I tell him. She needs a mama, and I am her mama. Oh, how I love to be a mama. To my children, to the children at school, to 23 kittens, or only one, I will pour out my love for each one. This longing, whatever it was that was created in me that cannot be satisfied, this longing to mother and nurture is stronger than me. Some people might feel that same longing and let it be their undoing. But for me, since I gave that longing to God years ago, I have seen him do with it things I never even imagined. For several more years, my biological clock may lead me down a teary path at times, longing for another child, but I'm not worried about how to handle it. Each time the longing comes, something greater comes along to fill it. A new novel, a new classroom full of first graders, a kitten on the side of the road. I cannot imagine what's next, but I look forward to it like an expectant mother might, with secret joy and butterflies in my belly. My longing for a child that will never be is not a curse, but a blessing. For the longing, I realize, is simply bound up love with no place yet to rest.